Thank you, Ju. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we meet again. Okay, so welcome back. Okay, so this is the fourth lecture on the module of Business Analytics and AI in Islamic Management. Today, I'm going to talk about decision making and Shariah compliance. So basically, what we'll do is we're going to explore how to integrate Islamic principles with modern decision-making techniques so that we can make ethical, effective, and Sharia-compliant decisions. So firstly, we will begin by understanding decision-making process that combines Islamic and modern management frameworks. After that, we will recognize how Sharia compliance enhances both the ethics and effectiveness of decision made in today's business world. Decision making in management involves core functions such as strategic planning, problem solving, resource allocation, and risk management. Okay, so the goal is we want to select the best course of action to achieve specific objectives, whether they are strategic or operational or even for daily tasks. And typically, when we make these decisions, they are goal-oriented, rational, data-driven, and we do it or we make it collaboratively. On the other hand, from an Islamic perspective, decision that we make should also deeply involve concepts such as tawakkul, means that we place trust in Allah after we put all of the best effort that we can do. Secondly, musyawarah or consultation with relevant and knowledgeable group of people. And thirdly, maslahah, which focuses on the public good or welfare instead of personal interest. For example, a technology startup company plans to have a product launch. So the management, of course, they should gather the market data. But at the same time, they should also pray to Allah through by performing, for example, solat istikharah, and also consult trusted Islamic business advisors, which is important in order to make sure that the products that they would like to launch meets the halal standard and also will benefit the community. Okay, so why does it is important? Why does decision making matter? Okay, the hadith narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab emphasizes that actions are judged by intention or niyyah. Therefore, intention is actually the foundation of all this. In fact, from a conventional perspective, everything is starts with objective. Objective is the key or is the first step, and this is consistent with Islamic principle of niyyah, the intention. So similarly in Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 5, and there is no blame upon you for that in which you have erred, but what your hearts intended, and ever is Allah forgiving and merciful. Meaning to say that we are not blamed if we make mistakes unintentionally, but at the same time this surah and this verse emphasize accountability for what we have intended to do. So this reinforces both this hadith and Quranic verses are just the example that reinforce the importance of sincerity and accountability behind every decision that we make. In fact, Shariah dictates that decisions that we make must be ethical. Must be ethical, benefit the society, and align with overreaching goals of Maqasid al-Syariah. Let us now examine some of the important Islamic principles which are very relevant and useful when we want to make decisions. Okay, the first principle, the relevant principle is tawakkul. Means we should place trust in Allah after we have taken all of the necessary efforts and actions. The second principle is musyawarah, okay, which is the collective process of consultation. Okay, as emphasized in Surah Ash-Shura, for example, in verse 38, the meaning is who responded to their Lord, establish prayer, conduct their affairs by mutual consultation, and donate from what we have provided for them. Okay, the third principle is maslahah. Okay, it encourages the promotion of welfare and avoidance of harm from the decision that we want to make. Fourth principle is la darrar wa la dirar. Okay, the no harm principle. Okay, this principle is meant to prohibit actions that cause harm to not only for oneself but also more importantly to the general, okay, to other people. Okay, the fifth principle, darura and la haraj. Okay, it introduce flexibility in difficult situation or necessity because of course there are predefined rules and regulation, but according to the principle, if there is a necessity, then some exemption applies. Last but not least is the principle of amanah, which is very relevant, which is very important in making a decision because it involves trustworthiness and accountability, not only to Allah, but also to society. Scientifically, these are the steps that we should or is recommended for us to follow whenever we want to make decision. Okay, so generally, decision-making process scientifically can be broken down into 7 steps. And today, we're going to see how can each of these 7 steps be supported by Islamic guidelines and principles. Okay, so we're going to discuss these steps one by one. Step 1. Okay, clearly define the problem. Okay, so the first step is for us to define the problem, okay, that required so that we are clear what we want to do. Okay, what would be the target. Okay, define the problem. Okay, it requires the clear setting and actionable goal. Okay, so the target, the goal that we want to achieve must be feasible, actionable goals. Okay, so why? Because without clear objectives, decisions become unclear and ineffective. Okay, we may end up collecting not relevant information, or we may end up collecting wrong information, okay, which will not ensure or support the decision that we want to make. So in Islam, this step means, okay, we have to purify our intention by ensuring that the goal that we want to achieve is halal and intended to please Allah, to find the redha from Allah and would benefit the ummah, the bigger public, instead of our own, to serve only our own self-interest. In doing so, sometimes adjustments are necessary, and this is possible supported by Islamic principle of darura and la haraj. Okay, when there are hardships or unforeseen limitation, then some exemption applies. Okay, for example, okay, a halal food company identifies a decline in sales, okay, as a problem. Okay, but instead of just pursuing their profit, they refocus on educating the public. Okay, educate the public the importance of something. For example, sustainable target, right? So maybe to ensure we are using sustainable how to say materials to produce our products. Okay, it may incur higher cost of production. However, we should educate the public the importance of everybody to do something towards the greater good. Okay, next is to list possible alternatives. Okay, step 2 involves listing all possible alternatives. So at this stage, okay, we should not limit our option. Okay, from a management perspective, at this step we should brainstorm. Okay, we should list out okay all of the ideas that come to our mind. Then only we group. Okay, we group into the feasibility or the doability of those IT. But the idea is at this stage when we are generating alternatives or possible actions, then we should be very creative. Okay, and consistently, Islam encourages musyawarah or collective consultation in order to ensure that the options that we are evaluating, the options that we are considering are halal and ethically sound. So, to maintain accountability or amanah, the rationale for every option should be clearly recorded, meaning throughout the process, we should write down the note. Why? The first option, why is it good? The second option, why is it considered? Why is it why? Okay, so just to record the rationale of every option. And to improve this process, we can use scientific tools such as SWOT analysis. SWOT, okay, SWOT. It stands for the analysis of strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat, which is very useful because SWOT analysis is a scientific tool that makes us think, okay, what internally and externally, what are the pros and cons, what are our own strength, what are our own weaknesses, okay, that we can capitalize, that we should improvise in order for us to minimize if we cannot eliminate the threat or take advantage of a rising opportunity. So that is as an example, SWOT analysis. And at the same time, it is also important for us to consult knowledgeable and trustworthy stakeholders, meaning that we should get input from relevant people. Okay. Now, step 3. Okay, step 3 is about identifying potential outcomes, or scientifically we call it states of nature. So what is states of nature? States of nature or possible potential outcomes are something that may happen in the near future or in the future to the decisions that we make at the moment. Okay, so this may happen in the future. We're not sure yet, okay, which will happen, but by gathering information, we can estimate these are the possibilities. But the tricky part is, okay, we're not sure which one will happen and we need to assess the potential impact of these, okay, states of nature on the decision that we make now. So, management practices advise us to gather comprehensive information so that we can anticipate risks and those uncertainties. While Islam encourages us, okay, other than collecting the relevant information, Islam also encourages us to perform solat istikharah at this stage. Why? Because we want to get some guidance from Allah, okay, so that we can make, a better decision or analysis. So this spiritual step should complement the analytical assessment using scientific methods. Okay, how we do that? By instilling the principle of tawakkul and focusing on maslahah. Okay, while avoiding any outcome that may cause harm to the people. Okay, so for example, an Islamic fintech company, okay, weighing the expansion risk, okay, considering or evaluating what would be the potential risk when they want to expand their business. So of course, they have to conduct market research. Okay, so the scientific approach recommend us to conduct market research. But as Muslim, okay, Islam encourages to also perform solat istikharah. So what we are doing, basically we consider both, okay, the societal impact and also any relevant rules and regulation or laws in order to make the decision. So it will be more comprehensive. Next, okay, so the next step of decision making process is step 4. List, okay, requires us to list down all possible outcome or impacts of every decision alternative that we have listed earlier. Okay, earlier we list down what are the doable or feasible alternatives or courses of actions that we can choose. But at this step, what we do is basically, okay, list down what would be the outcome, okay, of this. Okay, what would be the consequence of those alternatives. So this step actually involves a cost benefit analysis, and we should also at this stage evaluating the pros and cons. And in order to do this, we can use scientific techniques such as decision matrices and again SWOT analysis. Okay, importantly for this step, okay, Islam emphasizes that we consider not only financial gain, okay, but also spiritual as well as societal benefits. Okay, the principle of maslahah, and also to avoid harms, the principle of mafsadah. So in this case, the principle of darura allows us, okay, to do allows for flexible trade-off in challenging circumstances. So for example, so remember maslahah means public interest or benefits. Okay, so maslahah refers to actions, rules, or policies that promote welfare in order to protect essential values such as life, religion, intellect, and property. And the purpose or the aim is to prevent harm within the community. Okay, so and then the principle of mafsadah again means harm or damage. It means that it refers to actions, rules, or outcomes that may cause harm, such as corruption or injustice to individuals or society. So Islamic law aims to prevent or remove mafsadah in making our decisions in order to uphold justice and social welfare. Step 5. Okay, step 5 is to select one of the mathematical model or scientific model in order to improve decision that we want to make. Okay, so from a management perspective, okay, this step includes using tools, okay, such as expected value approach, decision tree, SWOT analysis, risk analysis, or multi-criteria decision analysis. Okay, so these scientific tools, okay, are actually systematic, okay, and objective frameworks that we can use to help quantify and compare different options based on data and projected outcomes. So those techniques that I've listed on the slide are basically the, just the decision making models that you can use. Okay, in this context, okay, Islamic guidelines requires that the chosen models that we want to use to fully comply with Shariah by avoiding riba, usury, excessive risk or gharar, and injustice. So actually, Okay, it is important. Okay, it is important for us to combine those objective analytical tools with intuition and collective wisdom through musyawarah. Okay, so the strategy is to validate models with expert consultation to ensure transparency, fairness, and ethical integrity. Okay, so again, okay, so from the Islamic perspective, okay, it's important, it is essential that the model we choose should comply fully with Islamic principle. So what do I mean by this is to exclude any models or methods that incorporate elements of riba, okay, or too much of uncertainty, or too much of speculation, or injustice. Okay, so the key is fairness, transparency, and ethical integrity must be upheld throughout the modeling process. So even though we are using scientific models to improve the process of our decision making, still, still we have to take this into account. Okay, so means that the beyond the purely mathematical or analytical tools that we want to use, we should consider, the role of intuition gained through experience and the collective wisdom obtained by consulting knowledgeable experts. Okay, so consulting Shariah scholars and experts provide assurance that the decision analytic tools that we want to use align with both ethical standards and also practical reality. So transparency is how models are applied, how results are interpreted. So this will further strengthen accountability and trustworthiness, which is the principle of amanah in making decision. Okay. So the next step, Step 6, apply the model and decide. So step 6 focuses on applying the chosen decision model earlier, and then we make our choice. So from a management standpoint, this involves rational, data-driven analysis balanced with intuition whenever appropriate. Okay, and Islam teaches us to complete our analysis and remember about the hadith, for example, narrated by Anas ibn Malik about a man asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, O Messenger of Allah, should I tie my camel and trust in Allah, or should I just leave the camel untied and trust in Allah? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, tie her and trust in Allah. So what does it mean? It means that we should this hadith is to teach us the balance between taking practical precautions and relying on Allah's will. It means that yes, we must take all necessary and reasonable steps to secure our affairs, but at the same time, we should ultimately place our trust in Allah's protection and decree. Okay, so in essence, the message or what I'm trying to say is, yes, we can do the best that we can, but then once we do that, we leave the rest to Allah's will. Step 7, so the seventh step of a decision-making process covers implementation, accountability, and ongoing review. Okay, so management assigns, from management perspective is for us to assign clear responsibilities, allocate resources, monitor progress, and gather the relevant feedback from time to time. Okay, while in Islam, Islam requires us to carry out decisions with accountability. okay, with accountability, okay, which reminds, okay, so if you refer to Surah An-Nisa, verse 59, okay, translation, should you disagree on anything, then refer it to Allah and His Messenger. So this verse reminds us to resolve disputes by referring to Allah and His Messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so improvement should be continuous. Okay, we should review Shariah compliance and outcome from time to time. So, such as using the principle of musyawarah to guide adaptation. And also we have another relevant principle is darura and la haraj, which permits adjustment if needed. So again, what do we mean by darura and la haraj? It's about flexibility under necessity. Okay, so these principles provide latitude in situations of genuine need for hardship, while the principle of darura or necessity, it allows exception to usual rules when if we strictly follow that, then it will cause greater harm. Okay, and the other principle of la haraj means no hardship principle. This principle strives to ease the burden. So when we combine these two principles together, okay, they will enable us to make decisions that will that will be adapted to context. Okay, context of difficulty without compromising the core Islamic values. So we want to be very flexible. We want to be accommodative of unexpected scenario, but at the same time, we don't want to compromise the Sharia values. Okay, the next is about ethics and social responsibilities. Okay, so ethics and social responsibility actually very relevant, is part and parcel of decision making that we want to make. Okay, so from a modern management perspective, okay, it requires or it demands for transparency, accountability, respectful treatment, and also to consider all of the stakeholders affected by the decision that we want to make. While Islam requires that all choices that we make, okay, are subject to Allah's law and ethics. The aim is we want to avoid harm, la darar principle. We want to uphold justice, and we also want to respect privacy. Actually, okay, the ethical consideration also promote societal welfare of maslahah. Okay, the Islamic principle of maslahah. So ethical decision also do this, also promote this, and also the principle of preventing harm. Okay, so the principle of amanah, okay, is also will also guide us in transparency and fairness. So obviously, okay, the modern corporate social responsibility actually in alignment with Islamic social ethics. For example, a halal fashion brand, for example, okay, ensuring fair labor practice. So when they make sure fair labor practice in their recruitment, they are actually also inconsistent with the Islamic justice, okay, while at the same time, okay, promoting or enhancing the brand reputation of the company. Okay, so it's not only serve one purpose or objective. Okay, types and techniques of decision making. Okay, decision making types and techniques varies, okay, depending on the objective of the decision that we want to make, depending on the amount of information that we have, depending on level of control that we have on the outcome of decisions or alternative of actions that we can take. Okay, so generally the types can be differentiated between routine versus non-program, or strategic versus tactical, or decision varies between individuals or group decisions. And of course, scientifically, there are various techniques, okay, lots of techniques that we can use in order to guide our decision making process, okay, such as decision matrix, Delphi method, Pareto principle, six thinking hats, multi-criteria decision analysis, root cause analysis, and there are many more. Okay, but whichever scientific method that we would like to use, okay, it is strategic to apply Islamic values such as musyawarah, tawakkul, and maslahah in identifying the right method, like what we have discussed earlier. Okay, so again, okay, when we say maslahah means we are to promote welfare and to avoid harm. Okay, so this is very important principle. Okay, because it ensures that decision that we make, okay, should aim at maximizing benefits not only for the direct stakeholder or the people directly affected by the decision, but also society at large, while at the same time minimizing the harmful effect of it. So when we choose alternatives, okay, we as decision makers must weigh what are the positive impacts, okay, and what are the potential harms, okay, maslahah versus mafsadah, to ensure ethical and balanced outcomes consistent with the public good. So this is just to illustrate example of techniques that we can use. Okay, even though we are using scientific techniques. Okay, so what is decision analysis? Decision analysis is a group of techniques that we can use when our objective is to choose one most preferable option or one most preferable alternative. Okay, so using the scientific approach, okay, the first is problem formulation, meaning to say that we have to be very clear what is our aim, what is our target. Okay, so based on the objective, the niyyah, the intention, the niyyah, okay, we would be able to identify which are relevant information, which are non-relevant information. And then among those relevant information, we can further differentiate between which are controllable to the decision maker, which are the options that are not controllable to decision maker. Because whether it's controllable or not controllable will affect what can be done. And then again, depending on the amount of information that we can capture or assess the uncertainty of the outcome of the decision that we choose today, then we have different techniques. Okay, so so this is just to illustrate that yes, there are many scientific techniques that we can use to make decision, but it is not, okay, we cannot simply rely on single technique for whatever nature of decision that we want to make. Okay, which is more appropriate technique depending on the intention, the niyyah, and also, okay, the available information, and also which the amount of control we have on the different options that we can go for. So this is okay. This can be, okay, this kind of approach, okay, in Surah Al-Isra verse 36, for example, it reminds us the necessity of knowledge in decision making. Okay, so the verse emphasizes us to avoid baseless assumptions and speculation. Okay, so we have to take accountability for the decisions that we make. Okay, the intellect that we use. Okay, the you know the analysis that we conduct. So this Quranic verse encourage us to to do critical thinking. Okay, to apply critical thinking rather than blind following of others. So this aligns perfectly with ethical decision analysis techniques in both, okay, religious and scientific matters. Okay, so factors influencing decision making. Okay, depending on which perspective are we considering these factors, we identify the factors. Okay, so from management perspective, okay, factors influencing decision making include the culture background, the leadership style, the data quality, the risk tolerance, and also group dynamics. So this is from management perspective. However, from Islamic perspective, okay, the factors are halal and haram boundaries, the sincere intentions, the need to respect for privacy, principle of aura, and accountability before Allah and society. Okay, so these are very, very important factors that will affect, okay, the decision that we're going to make. Okay, so decision quality can be rational or intuitive. So what's the difference between rational or intuitive? Rational decision making is systematic, data driven, and evidence based. Okay, so aligning with Islam's the emphasis of Islam placed on knowledge. So this is in alignment. Okay, so intuitive decision making relies on experience, gut feelings, and spiritual direction. Okay, so that's why Islam encourages to perform salat istikhara. So the most effective approach for us when making decision is to blend both rational analysis and also intuitive insight, because both would give us different angle of analysis and different perspective of understanding, okay, before we can make informed decision. So tools for what are the available tools for making better decisions? Okay, right. So business analytics and artificial intelligence are powerful tool for us that we should consider in making decisions. Okay, so what is business analytics? Okay, why we should use business analytics? Because business analytics provide us with data-driven support for scenario planning and risk assessment. In contrast, we should also use AI. Why? Because AI offers scale and efficiency, but must be carefully designed, okay, so that we don't violate the privacy principle of aura, okay, or we want to avoid bias and we want to maintain transparency, okay, in accordance with Shariah ethics and principle. So we should use both, because together both business analytics and AI will enable faster and more accurate decisions while still, okay, within ethical framework. Okay. So the recommended strategies to make sure that we are able to make well-informed decisions or to overcome decision-making pitfalls. Okay, we are to avoid emotional bias. Okay, to avoid having unclear objectives. Okay, make sure the data is sufficient and relevant and current, and we should also avoid making hasty actions. Okay, so while decisions must sometimes be made quickly, especially at the time of crisis, but thorough Sharia compliance checks should never be compromised. Besides, continuous feedback loops should be leveraged to improve and maintain compliance. And we can also apply musyawarah, the principle of musyawarah, the principle of tawakkul, that will strengthen the robustness of decisions that we're going to make. And undeniably, continuous ethical vigilance is very, very important to make sure no harm happens. Okay, so in conclusion, decision making is a structured process that will become highly effective when we combine, rational analytical tools, group inputs, Islamic values, and also the element of continuous improvement. Okay, Sharia compliance is not to be seen as just a requirement for ethical management, but also a pathway to wider trust and overall success. So please remember that decision making is a holistic process, holistic journey that should blend spiritual, ethical, and analytical approaches. And these must be anchored in core Islamic principles such as tawakkul, musyawarah, maslahah, la darurah, and amanah to make sure comprehensive success in the sense that we are making well-informed decisions. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. So now the time for Q&A, Doctor.
Yes.
So let me check in the chat box. Or all participants can raise up your hand for direct question.
The next speaker is in 5 minutes time, right? Sorry, I take too long. Thank you.
Also, Jaime will be the next speakers, inshallah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. The slide overlaid by the window. Yeah, I think you can access the slide, right? Jude, they can access my slide, right?
Yeah, sure. In the Google Drive links. Okay, if we don't have any question. Oh, here the question that I can from Brother Hassan. Can you explain the give sample of technique on decision making, especially decision metric and Delphi method?
Oh, Delphi method is actually a group decision making in such a way that we would like to minimize bias. We want to remove the influence of dominant people in the group. So what we do is, okay, for example, you have a proposal. Okay, you have a proposal. So instead of presenting the proposal to a group of people physically, what you will do is you're going to mail your proposal to the experts, and they will give their feedback at their own location without physically seeing each other. So they will give their honest feedback, and then what you do is you're going to collect all of the feedback, and then you're going to synthesize. And you may want to modify or improve the initial proposal, okay, and then you will send out the revised proposal to the same group of people again. Okay, so Delphi method is very effective because sometimes, okay, when you have a face-to-face discussion, sometimes the outcome or the decision will be affected by dominant people in the group. So if you use Delphi, it can eliminate that.
And another question from Brother Imran Arshad. How can we ensure intention are pure?
Okay, so that's why we have to when we are defining objectives of the decision that we want to make. Okay, we have to check with the Islamic principle. Okay, so make sure, okay, it is not contradict to the Islamic principles which are relevant to making decision. For example, okay, the principle of maslahah, okay, to promote welfare and avoid harm. So of course sometimes the product idea or something that we want to do would be very profitable to us, but when it contradicts this principle, then okay, that can be considered as not pure. Okay, so to me, how what's the definition is pure is very subjective. Okay, we must always interpret in the context. Okay, but if you're talking about making decision for your personal, so what is pure, what is acceptable is different than if you're making decision to your organization or to your group. Okay, so that's okay. So I believe that if you follow, or you set your target, but in accordance to the Islamic principle relevant to making decision, then inshallah you can consider that it is pure. Or perhaps Prof. Suhaimi would like to add in. I'm more on quantitative person. Prof. Suhaimi, you would like to add on to that?
There is many
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
question.
wabarakatuh.
Yeah.
Yeah, many question on that. Basically, the intentions, it is together with the actions. In order to know authentic or not, we have to refer to the Islamic teachings, Quran and Sunnah. Yeah, that is the guideline given Prophet Muhammad SAW. And you talk about whether or not the machine is authentic or not. The one that determine authentic or not is us, our intelligence, our akal. Yeah? That's why we have to protect our akal so that we can make decision based on the teachings of Quran and Sunnah. So that is my response, because people asking about AI is a tool. So the one that going to make the action is us, because um, the intention is to qualify our action whether it is in line with the teachings of Islam. So, wallahu alam.
Okay, thank you very much. So there is many question in that. If Dr. Wan Rohaida can answer by type in the chat box, that's فليتفضل. But now